Next story. France is burning. France is burning. And why probably Europe will too, unfortunately. So the French are protesting again. It's their hobby. They're known for protesting. The trigger point this time was killing of 17-year-old Nahel of Algerian descent. He was a delivery driver. He was shot by police in Nanterre because he was driving off during a traffic police check. In response, President Emmanuel Macron said that the killing was inexplicable and inexcusable. On Sunday, July 2, Nahel's grandmother told, "Don't break windows, buses, schools. We want things to calm down." She also told that while she resents the killer of her grandson, she does not blame the entire French police. She asserted that some protesters are using her grandson's death as an excuse to cause a ruckus. But the French police described the protests as civil war. French nationalists are coming out to protect themselves and their communities and are attacking rioters. French Antifa came out on the side of rioters and started attacking French nationalists. Okay, these protests have sparked a conversation on French but also European demographics. Europeans, just like Americans, started importing immigrants and refugees to try to stabilize demographics by having younger working age people in their countries. But most people who are coming to Europe as refugees are Muslims from South Asia, Middle East and North Africa. Mostly people from Syria, Pakistan and Afghanistan, but also from other parts of Africa. These people are also of fighting age. They're working age males mostly. These people are not assimilating in European culture, but they're rather creating their own areas, the segregated areas in European countries. This has also caused a rise in crime rates in Europe in recent years. The thing about multiculturalism is everyone has to believe in multiculturalism. While Europeans have become more secular and multicultural in recent decades, Muslims are still culturally conservative and monocultural. Europeans and all these new Europeans, old Europeans and new Europeans, they are in direct contrast when it comes to issues like rights of women, LGBT communities, free speech, freedom of religion, etc. These refugees are having families and slowly increasing their populations, but they are not assimilating. So with this, Europe is set up for a potential civil war in upcoming decades, if not years, as Europeans try to forcefully assimilate these immigrants and refugees, if not deport them, while these immigrants and refugees not only refuse to assimilate, but to try to convert Europeans into Islam. This will be a case study for future generations. Also, Europeans, they have proven themselves as American vassals with this Ukraine war. And NATO has existed for a long time, basically after Second World War. And Europeans were never known for their multiculturalism. They were just not. They tried to spread their own culture, in fact, just like Muslims are doing now, just like these new Europeans are doing now. Old Europeans tried to spread their culture all over the world. They're not multicultural people by design, I guess you can say. But you know who multicultural is? America. Americans have always been multicultural ever since the starting of the United States, or the founding of United States. Ever since founding of United States has been multicultural. They've had all kind of Europeans and Africans and Native Americans. Now, sure, they have historically treated Native Americans and Africans poorly. Africans were brought in as slaves. Native Americans were wiped out. But within the white population, within the European population, they mostly lived happily together in America, in United States, whether they are British, whether they are Irish, whether they are Italian, whether they are German or Scottish or English and whatever else, Polish, Ukrainian, Austrians and Swiss and sometimes French, they have lived happily together in Americas at a time when Europeans were fighting amongst each other. So, who is introducing multiculturalism in Europe? Probably the Americans. Why they are doing that? Well, the most obvious reason is demographics. Europeans are getting old. They want young people to work so as to not destabilize their economies. But also, they are importing refugees and immigrants from areas of the world that are not known for assimilation or bending the knee. So Europeans are not getting Indians or East Asians, the good immigrants. They're getting Pakistanis, Syrians, all these war-torn areas, and most of the people that are coming there are fighting age males, working age males. Some women, children are also coming there and old people, but most of them are fighting age, working age males that are coming to Europe. Why? Well, we can speculate. Number one, because the war on terror has destabilized the Arab world so much that the Europeans and the Americans don't want the disenfranchised the disaffected populations of those war-torn countries to get together and start new jihad group, new terrorist group. So they are just packing them and sending them to Europe, hoping that they will assimilate into European culture because of all the nice infrastructure, nice amenities like taxpayer subsidized education, healthcare, etc. They're hoping they would assimilate, and this hope is now gone and they have a disaster waiting for them. Another, they deliberately are putting all these immigrants and refugees into Europe to destabilize Europe. Remember, European population is roughly around American population. European economy is roughly the same as China in terms of size of the economy. Europeans also have started the process of de-dollarization with the euro in 1990s. Most people think the de-dollarization has begun after the Russia-Ukraine conflict started, but the de-dollarization process was already started by Europeans in 1990s after the collapse of the Soviet Union. Maybe they want to destabilize Europe, and they can do it easily by destabilizing Europe demographically. Maybe that's the plan of Americans, maybe. And this is not implausible, because if you look at Plaza Accords in 1980s and what that did to Japanese economy, how Japan had stopped growing after 1980s, after the Plaza Accords. Before the Plaza Accords, many people thought Japan would become the next superpower, and they are growing at a rapid pace. But after the Plaza Accords, their economy stopped growing. Maybe something similar is done to the Europeans. We all know that Americans are trying to destabilize Russia, China, and Iran, and also India too. So maybe they're also trying to destabilize Europe to just to maintain their hegemony. This is American doctrine, and this is basically what was going to happen after the collapse of the Soviet Union. That once America became a hegemon, the goal shifted from defeating another superpower, the Soviet Union, to maintaining their own superpower and ensuring that no challenger emerges. This is called the Wolfowitz Doctrine. I think Wolfowitz Doctrine it's called in Americas. And maybe what's happening to Europe, maybe it's some geopolitical plan of United States. I can't tell. I don't have any evidence. I'm just speculating here. But why would they import monocultural conservative populations into a more secular and more multicultural society other than destabilizing that population? And European leaders, they'll go along like sheep because they have done so in the Russia-Ukraine conflict. No one has raised the question of Nord Stream pipeline in the United Nations, because why would they? No Europeans, I mean, because everyone knows who did blow up the Nord Stream pipeline, and Europeans are not rising up against that. The destruction of Nord Stream pipeline and stopping of Russian natural gas and oil through sanctions has only destroyed the European economy. This is dark stuff. What's happening to Europe? Sure, many of you may think Europeans were colonizers and all that. They did a lot of horrific things to the world. But the present day Europeans have nothing to do with their past.